Just to let you know that the village started. I hope they're talking real familiar. I hope they're real familiar. Who? Oh, Tasha in the trunk. She in Greenville, ain't she?
Where me today, by the way?
You know what's the space? Tasha, how far? Oh, she live off the Reed Road.
I wonder if somebody called me to say, throw the tickets down. We don't get the
That's what was a feeling like That's about your bill. Is this about your bill? The lights on?
The cheap place.
Oh, the cheap bill's over there. Oh, he did. Reverend Rosie. No, it did. They just laughed and about scared him. He ain't did nothing down there.
We talked about this coming Sunday. You know, let so many more time.
Okay.
Well, we gonna buy that out.
Yeah, you go back and
We gonna buy that.
little time to go back.
Like when we gave our tires Friday. We carried our tires Friday from 2 to 6.
Yeah.
Well, they carry them.
And when you carry your tires,
We did real
cash
good.
out.
We did real good last Sunday. We did better than we been doing.
we got cash out and we go out and all that everything. When we carried our tires, we picked up afternoon. And look, it looks like we're being more than
We did real good last Sunday.
That was the
All
second year.
I'm coming on first.
I will ask
We
you
gonna have some this time.
the first and third. But they said we're more coming.
Mayor?
Morning. To the mayor.
Yes.
Thank you all for coming to this press conference. I would like to first begin by saying our hearts and prayers go out to the families of those who lost their lives during yesterday's storms that swept across this state and the South. In addition, our prayers and thoughts continue to be with the families of individuals who lost their lives due to this current pandemic of the COVID-19 coronavirus. We are indeed living in unprecedented times. For the first time in modern history, we've seen our businesses, restaurants, colleges, schools, churches, weddings, funerals, graduations, and other events either closed, postponed, canceled, or affected in some way due to COVID-19. As we know, this is not just local, but it's happening across the world. Americans are adjusting and adapting to what has become a strange new normal, where every day presents a new challenge to local, state, and federal governments to respond. Throughout the daily challenges and changes to local, state, and federal mandates to address this pandemic, the constant are those on the front lines, our healthcare workers and our first responders. Thank you does not convey the depth of gratitude we have for what you do every single day. As elected officials, we too are on the front lines, responding to new circumstances and conditions to this pandemic in real time. What may be sufficient today may not be sufficient another day. What we do know is limiting contact. We can maintain a flattened curve throughout the community, and that depends on the actions of each and every last one of us. As a father, a husband, and a devout Christian, I understand the need to reassure our children, to minimize the anxiety that comes with this uncertainty, and to strengthen our faith during these times. Faith continues to be the center of this administration. Our very first initiative was an interfaith, interracial, racial reconciliation initiative called Worship on the Water. And as we saints know, when we get around the water and we drink from that, we don't have to drink again. Where residents come to the waterfront to exalt God and participate in corporate worship as a community every fifth Sunday of the month, an initiative that has received national recognition. Our churches are a cornerstone of our community. Our faith-based leaders have been creative and innovative in their practice of social distancing through the use of electronic, social media, and other platforms during this pandemic. There have been much dialogue about Greenville City Council's order regarding church services entered with a vote of 4-1 on April 2nd, 2020. Recently, a smear campaign against me and the city that I love has begun. These lies about my beliefs and actions are unsubstantiated and riddled with false narratives and unnecessary attacks. To suggest that I would take an action to unlawfully deny someone the practice of his or her faith is ridiculous. To publicly state on media outlets and press conferences that this mayor targeting any church in this community is unacceptable and reprehensible. But let's review the facts. On March 17, 2020, the Greenville City Council entered its first order adopting CDC and Department of Health social distancing guidelines and mandated that there should be no gatherings more than 10. After that, some churches still had in-person services and others had drive-in services but still congregated outside of their vehicles. Between March 17th, the date of the council's original order, and April 2nd, 2020, the date of the governor's shelter-in-place order, the mayor and council were actively engaged with clergy and faith-based leaders in support of all the social distancing measures they were taking, which included drive-in services and electronic broadcasts and meetings. During this period, some churches continued in-person services that exceeded 10 people. and we began to receive calls from around the community and around the state about these violations, while some faith leaders publicly refused to comply with the council's March 17 order. In the meantime, the number of confirmed cases in Washington County increased from 1 confirmed case on March the 20th, 2020, to 31 confirmed cases on April the 2nd, 2020. On April 2nd, 2020, the governor enters Mississippi's shelter-in-place order. The next morning, on Friday, April the 3rd, 2020, the Mississippi Department of Health issued its guidelines stating, and I quote, "Because of recent COVID-19 cases specifically linked to church gatherings, it is vital that Mississippians not attend in-person church services at any church or any type of facility," close quote. Up to this point, despite the known violations, and in light of the increase of confirmed cases, no citations were issued. I continued conversations with clergy and faith-based leaders to ensure that there was clarity around the original council order, the governor's shelter-in-place order, and the Mississippi Department of Health guideline about church gatherings. Those conversations included several discussions specifically about drive-in services. Moreover, on a call with the governor with Mississippi mayors, the question of drive-in services came up, and the governor stated that drive-in services will not work because people of faith like the fellowship. In light of this statement, the governor's shelter-in-place order, the CDC guidelines, and the Mississippi Department of Health guideline on church gatherings, known violators, the capacity of our police force to monitor over 100 churches, the limited number of hospital beds here at Delta Regional Medical Center, and the looming date in which PPEs, medical supplies, and healthcare resources will run out, the council had a lengthy discussion at the city council meeting. In this context, on Tuesday, April 7, 2020, the Greenville City Council, with a vote of 4-1, issued a stricter order on church services to address the influx of calls that churches were violating the first order and CDC guidelines. This order allowed for pastors and musicians and production and media teams in the churches so long as they didn't go over 10 people in compliance with the CDC guidelines, and it also banned drive-in services. This order was put in place for the sole purpose to save lives and prevent the spread of COVID-19, specifically linked to church gatherings. On that date, the number of confirmed cases stood at 40, with 2 confirmed deaths. Still, no citations were issued. On the following day, Wednesday, April 8, 2020, officers arrived at Temple Baptist Church after several calls that it had having drive-in services. Parishioners were kindly asked by law enforcement to leave. Most members immediately left. Only those members who refused to leave were issued citations. These were the first citations issued over 3 weeks of defiance. At no point in time have our officers raided or staked out any place of worship. In a separate incident, on Thursday, April 9th, 2020, officers were called to King James Baptist Church under the provocation of its pastor regarding an April 7th order. Many of you have seen this incident captioned on Facebook Live, which did not result in any citations to that pastor or any parishioners at that church, as they were in compliance with the CDC rule and orders of this council. There were 5 folks there, including the pastor at that particular church. These incidents have been taken out of context. It is a misrepresentation of our officers It is a misrepresentation of this council. It is a misrepresentation of this mayor. Like many of you, my family and I were very sad that we were unable to celebrate this Easter weekend in that traditional way of worship and gather together. We, like the president, like the governor, and like most of you and majority of you around the country, sheltered in place and watched services online due to this pandemic. This is not a time to play politics. This is not a time to inflame unprecedented and challenging times with unnecessary attacks and false narratives. The recent threats on my life, the members of my family, and law enforcement are incomprehensible, hateful, and divisive in a time where we should be united. In an effort to move forward in a united front, the city will not require anyone to pay the fines issued on April 7th for the violations of the city council order. Although I'm accused of seeking national attention by a political leader, my record is clear on my intent and love for this city. My record is clear on my unselfish concern and selfless sacrifice to serving others. My record is clear on the support of faith-based communities and serving in our personal walk with Jesus. My true aim is boldly led in the time of crisis to follow prudent guidelines enacted by this city council, the state, and federal government, and make difficult data-driven decisions based upon sound public health policy for the purpose of saving lives. People are dying. African Americans are dying at a higher rate than any others in the United States and in Mississippi. African Americans make up about 50%, over 50%, over the COVID-19 cases in Mississippi and represent over 70% of the deaths, but only make about 38% of the population. Here in Greenville, African Americans make up 70% of the population. In order to protect our residents and flatten the curve of COVID-19 cases specifically linked to church gatherings, the Greenville City Council on April the 7th order stands and will stand at this time. We need to be bold, and we need bold state leadership and partnership during this time. Thus, we ask our governor for definitive guidance on drive-in and parking lot services in light of CDC social distancing guidelines and Mississippi shelter-in-place order. To assist churches in their practice of social distancing, WBAD's sister station, WESY 1580 AM, is offering churches airtime to reach their parishioners free of charge. Please call the station for details at 662-335-9265. As Greenville elected mayor, I solicit your prayers for me, my family, the Greenville City Council, and their families, as we make very difficult decisions to save lives and protect lives and to keep us all healthy. People are dying. As your mayor and city council, we are requested to protect all citizens of this beautiful city. You have our commitment that we will do just that. Here, we are one people with one goal for one Greenville. And our greatest strength lies in our ability to work together. We are a resilient people in this community. From the floods of 2016 and 2019 to the EF2 tornado a couple of months ago, to this current pandemic, we are stronger together. Hug your family a little tighter. Let's continue our prayers for our folks on the front lines. Let's show love and kindness to each other. Let's stay home, stay safe, stay healthy, and save lives. Thank you at this time. We will take any questions from the media. Yes.
Yes, Mayor. After watching the governor myself on live streaming and things of that magnitude, he was very vague when it came to what the mayors were supposed to do. And if I understand correctly, I believe you are the president of the
Mississippi Delta Mayor's Association.
Mississippi Delta Mayor Association. You said you're going to ask for definitive
guidance
from the governor.
Yes.
So that way, what will you be able to tell the mayors who you are president over after that?
Yeah, what we're asking for is definitive guidance regarding drive-in and parking lot services. That's what the issue is. Of course, with the CDC guidelines of no more than 10 people, and in the governor's statement, he's recorded saying, with a heavy heart, he hates to tell pastors, and he has told pastors not to have these services. But when you say these services, what are you referring to? And so we understand that our traditional way of worship that we too all long to get back to, it has been affected. And so give us guidance on how to do that. We know locally here in cities and municipalities can do stricter things regarding executive orders, what the federal folks do, federal mandates. And what we're doing here at the council is being driven by data and making sure that we're protecting the folks and the lives here in the boundaries of the city of Greenville. So what we're asking for is just clear guidance. If there needs to be a set of rules that we all need to follow, just not for Greenville, but for folks in South Mississippi, Northeast Mississippi, everywhere in the state, so folks can worship and still have their constitutional right to worship, and we haven't infringed upon that.
Talk about
we just need those guidelines.
Bed availability.
Well, our bed availability is low. We have, at this given time, over the weekend, as of yesterday, the cases went from 48 cases on Friday to about 53 cases today over the weekend. Our hospital has 16 because, and our hospital has done a wonderful job. It has been a consistent voice with healthcare. We can congratulate our hospital and our CEO and our medical experts here. We were one of the first to have 2 testing sites. We did a separate triage at DRMC for folks who are having those symptoms of COVID-19 to go in a separate triage. But we have 16 coronavirus beds and only 8 ICU beds. With 53 cases, if anybody begins to get sick or severe hospitalizations, half of the 53, we wouldn't have enough beds. So we're beginning to do things and trying to do things to save lives, to meet the capacity, to serve lives, but more importantly, help treat those who are suffering from this awful disease. Yes.
Tommy Tatum with Delta Radio and Delta Daily News.
Yes.
Just for clarity's sake, as of now, you're going to leave the order in place and you're asking for guidance from the governor's office.
Yes.
Is it safe to assume that you'd like that answer before Wednesday night?
Yes, but we need the answer as soon as possible. And the council has the authority. It's a council order, given everything that has happened. And I can say about the men and women in front of you who are meeting the social distance guidelines, these folks sacrifice for their families to serve. And they get paid very little money to do what they do. They're in those jobs because they care about everybody in this community. And so we need clear guidance, bold leadership to say, look, if we can do drive-in parking lot services, tell us what we all can do to do that so we can do it and all be in compliance with that. But given the known violations we had over the 3-week period of time, the council at that time, given the data that they had and being apprised of the circumstances that they had, issued that order, not to infringe on no one's right to worship, not to stop folks from assembling, but based on what we had, knowing that our police force could not monitor over 100 churches. So that's what this council did. Any other questions? Brother? Yes, sir.
Yes, sir. Brother Larry from the Nation of Islam.
Yeah.
I wanted to ask a question. I've been hearing about shortages in the hospital, something that's things that they need, equipment and things like that. Are you hearing or trying to satisfy them? And actually help us to understand what we can do in the churches to help them to supply their needs as well.
You know, and the churches have begun helping, and we want to salute all of our faith-based leaders, and we've had that partnership with them. We are serving 200 to 250 meals a day to homeless, veterans, and those in need. And in our soup kitchen, we're doing over 100 meals. Down the street of this church right now in Ashop First Baptist, are serving lunches to students who are out from school on Tuesdays and Thursdays. And so our schools are doing what they need to do. Churches are writing checks to our soup kitchen, into our homeless shelters and things. The churches are a cornerstone, and they are our partners. We love every single brother and sister in Christ and faith. We love our churches. They're doing wonderful things. But we want to protect everyone's life. That's our charge when we took our oath to do that. And to abide by the Constitution, not infringe on one's right to worship, not infringe on one's right to assembly. And this order in no way does that. Any questions? Yes, ma'am.
Ann Jones, I'm a Presbyterian minister.
Yes.
I really approve of what you have done, and I'm grateful for what you have done. No one has told us we can't worship. Everybody can worship, but you're keeping us well.
Yes.
So thank you. But I would like to hear from my ward councilman. I would like for the ward council persons to regularly put some things out online or in the paper of needs in our community, of 90-year-olds who need food, of things we can do. I want to hear from my person.
Yes, ma'am. Okay, and we'll do that. We'll make sure that our council is regularly doing things.
There are especially elderly people living by themselves, and we need to know who they are and how we can help them.
That's right. And I can say, Dr. Jones,
thank you for you. You've done a great job.
thank you, Dr. Jones, and I thank you for all the things that you do with relocation, all of the things you help us with in the community, broken. Everyone here, we love this community, and I tell folks all the time, you know, the things that we've seen over the last days of outsiders and folks who are making unnecessary attacks, that's not Greenville. We know who we are. We are people who love each other. You know, we got the best hot tamales in the country. We got the best barbecue and the best food. That's who we are here in Greenville, and we love each other. And so the things that we've seen across this country, the phone calls that our staff has received, the threatening messages, that's not us. That's not us. And we hope that they will stop. And we hope that this press conference clears up and gives, you know, clear meaning and clear facts of what has happened and what we plan to do. And this council has the right to call a meeting and look at that order, given recent things that have come down and things that have happened in the past. And so thank you all so much. But I can say that we have a bleach drive going on right now today that already started with the local organizing committee and this council. And we have been to the senior citizen. We've dropped off supplies there. We're doing things, keeping account of where our elderly are. Those meals, 200 to 250, are to elderly, our homeless, and those in need. We've partnered with the Mississippi Food Network, and the Community Foundation of Washington County has been wonderful in picking up food across the state. We've picked up 24,000 pounds of food from Mississippi Food Network last month, and that continues. So we're doing the necessary things to make sure people are fed, they're sheltering in place, but we also put tips and tools out to all of the parents on ABC Mouse and all of the different things for our kids to be active and constructive while they're at home with their parents. So we're doing a lot of things. Yes, Tony.
Mayor, while we have so much attention on this issue and we have a lot of videos, so could you share with us the coronavirus hotlines in case people in our local community who maybe don't follow the news as closely,
Yes.
to have a little information that?
Yes, that coronavirus hotline is 662-725-6000. Once again, 662-725-6000. And you know, we do want to say on Easter, I know the question hasn't come out, but on Easter, on Resurrection Day, we told our officers to stand down because we wanted people to enjoy one of the holiest days of the year. And so people had services, some folks had drag, but we want our officers to stand down. And that's our way of loving our faith-based communities, and also, you know, understanding that, you know, by his stripes we are healed. And you know, even with this disease and all of the issues that with attacks, the false narratives, by his stripes we're healed. And by his stripes, he will make sure that we get past this, and this too shall pass. But we're just trying to do what we can do with information and making sure we save lives in this community.
With these citations being dropped, how is law enforcement?
I'm coming right back. I'm coming right back. Let me have another. I'm coming right back. Yes, ma'am.
We've been hand in hand a long time.
Yes.
My question to you, Mr. Mayor.
Yes, sir.
We're talking about safety
Yes, sir.
of the virus. Distance. Have you been to Walmart lately?
Yeah, and we've had those. Yes, sir.
Have you been to Lowe's?
Yes, sir. And so
Have
we've
you been to
had.
Dollar General?
Yes, sir. over the last week, we have had several calls regarding Lowe's, Dollar General, and the council has been apprised of that, and they are looking right now to ways in which we can address some of those. A call I got last night was from several healthcare workers who have to be in at 6, and when they get out, all of the bleach, all of the Pampers, and one mother has children, all of the milk, everything is gone. So we are in constant contact right now with the owners of those stores to see how we can have hours for healthcare workers and what measures they can put in place to make sure we have those social distancing.
Those people, they not wearing masks.
Yes, sir.
They're not wearing gloves. They got their big babies out there.
Yes, sir.
I mean, you know, when we talk about the church, but what we're gonna do there?
Yes, sir. And we're talking.
9 times out of 10, those people who's out there, if some of the people come to church, that's why it's something that can happen in the church. Because the people out there is not being serious.
Yes, sir. I do.
With this stuff out there, you know, in these different places.
I agree. The way we all can be safe is by keeping our distance and following the CDC guidelines, and so we will be discussing that in the near future. Thank you for that.
Sir,
Last question.
if I heard you correctly, you said those citations that were issued have been thrown out.
We were.
How is law enforcement supposed to be taken seriously when visibility is high? How are they to know, hey, we better break it up, and we better not do this because we might get a citation? But if they hear on the news tonight when Skylar goes back to WABG and tell everybody, hey, he threw him out, what is that saying for the citizens who are not serious, like this gentleman was just talking about?
You know, the greatest police is for us to police ourselves. And so we're asking people to take this serious. That's why we've made statements that we're not playing politics. That's why we're making statements that we are data driven. That's why we're making statements to stay safe, stay calm, stay healthy, save lives. We're asking our folks to understand that people are dying. You know, our first death, I had to call with the family members of Mrs. Bryant. And as mayor, it was a pain to my heart. I do not want to talk to another family member or to have another resident in this community to die alone because family members can't even go for that family member to take their last breath. We, as Greenvillians, have to do the right thing to love thy neighbor. That's in the Bible. Love thy neighbor as thyself. And the greatest love we can show right now is stay home. The greatest love we can show to our neighbor is shelter in. The greatest love that we can show to our brother and sister in faith is make sure we are abiding by the CDC guidelines, following this order of the council, the governor's order, and federal mandates.
Will citations follow? Will they be thrown out again?
The council will make a decision regarding that. Where we are today is to make sure that we move in a united front. Where we are today is to make sure that folks understand the false narrative is exactly that. It's false. The unnecessary attacks are exactly that, unnecessary and riddled with lies. We don't want that. And it's shameful for anyone in any leader to go out and say false things about this council, this mayor, and this city, and the people that live here. We cannot have that. But all we're trying to do, and the only purpose and legislative intent and reasoning behind the order, were to save and protect lives. Thank you all so much for your time. And if there is another press conference, we will talk to you all later. And we want to thank all of you all for coming out. Let's keep our first responders and those on the front lines in our prayers. Our gratitude is not enough to say thank you. God bless all of you all, and walk in faith and love.